Hello, welcome everyone. Let's B'ezrat Hashem learn Tzipor Maisis, the Maisa Mechocham V'Tam. Let me just put the text up, and we will read that which where we're holding, where we were, what we spoke about, and we'll take it from there. Here we go. Just a bit bigger. Here we go. All right. So we said that the clever one, the sophisticate, came back. He traveled with a fancy carriage and a fancy car, and the simpleton came to see him, to greet him, and they traveled together to the city. Now Rabbeinu says, in the meantime, we're getting into the story. The clever one, the sophisticate, came back home, and Rabbeinu says as follows: in the meantime, the two homeowners, the fathers of these two sons, had passed away, while the clever one was wandering abroad. And they left their houses behind, obviously. The simple one, who remained local, moved into his father's house and took possession of it. Now, the clever one, who had been abroad, he had no one to take possession of the house. So, the clever one's house was destroyed and lost, with nothing at all remaining of it. So, the clever one had no place to stay upon his arrival. He traveled to a certain inn, where he suffered because the inn was not to his liking. So the simple one now found himself a new task. And he would come running from his house all the time to the clever one, with love and joy, taking notice of how he was suffering at the inn. So the simple one said to the clever one, "My brother, come to my house and stay by me. I will gather all my stuff into one area, and the whole house will be yours to do with as you wish." This was agreeable to the clever one, so he entered his house and stayed by him. Let's touch a little bit upon this particular passage of what was going on there. The parents, the fathers, they represents the moichen, the chokhmah. A state of expanded consciousness. So, when the fathers are alive, when the chokhmah is alive, when you're moichen the gadlus, so you can find yourself, you can find always something to deal with, something to keep you integrated in Yiddishkeit, because it's interesting. Rabbeinu says in Torah Aleph that when you learn Torah, it raises the chen and the chashivas, the charm and the importance of everyone. And we have to understand is what is chen v'chashivas. Chen v'chashivas, why dafka that? A person would not do anything unless it has at least one of the two. Either it's fun, it's entertaining, it's captivating, it's riveting, and it gives you pleasure, and chashivas, because it's important. Many times you do things that they may not be so much fun, but it's important, so you do them. And furthermore, many more times I do things that are not important, and I do them because they're fun, because I like doing them, for various reasons. Either a place to run off to from pressures, uh, from feeling certain feelings, or run away from pressure, run away from whatever it is. So, or because they make me feel good about myself. In this week's parsha, we said that v'ikhu litruma, both the chen and the importance are the consequence of me having me in mind. Now, when things are neither captivating or alluring, neither are they important, we will not do them. Very simple. So, when a person has moichin de gadlus, he's in a state of expanded consciousness. When things don't go that well, in other words, I have to plod through things that I don't, that are important, but I don't like to do them. Many times I can find some solace in the fact that the stuff that I'm learning is interesting. I mean, that may not be easy, to act on it, or whatever it is, but it's fascinating, it's alluring, it has... But there comes a stage where, when they said the fathers died, that means there is the person loses the moichin de gadlus. He can't. He loses the ability to reason things. He's basically blinded. The house that their fathers built represents the emunah. We have a klal that the level of bina is chokhmah and bina together always. Bina is the expressed chokhmah. That's the highest madrega. It has a parallel. It has a moon. That's the sun. It has a moon. The moon is in the malchus. The malchus is the emunah. So the emunah is the house of the chokhmah. Because chokhmah alone can lead a person astray. Chokhmah always has to be defined and restricted, on the straight and narrow of the emunah. So, while the chokhmah shines, in other words, euphemistically, the father is alive. So the house exists. I learn things. I know it from them. I enjoy it. I remember when I first got close to Yiddishkeit many years ago, as you can imagine. I remember like it was today. I had absolutely no idea. I knew that I was looking for emunah. I was looking for Yiddishkeit. But I was not looking for it, for the intellectual content that it may bring, simply because I wasn't aware of that content. I mean, we all knew, that we learned in school that Judaism is very wise. That's it. That's the extent of my knowledge of Yiddishkeit. I mean, we learned Bible in school, and in high school we learned some Mishnayos, and that was the most effective way that the education system of the secular Israel had to hide Yiddishkeit completely. The secular system has made learning the Bible compulsory. There was no emunah in it, and they also made the Mishnayos a compulsory, and they were both about as riveting as and perceived as relevant to our lives as watching paint dry. I mean, you want to take a bunch of secular kids and hide Yiddishkeit from them in a way that they will never find. They will, in a way that they'll never find it. The way to do it is to force them to learn the Bible very superficially, require them to memorize by heart, and maybe have a heart to be tested on or whatever it is, with absolutely no in-depth. It's basically, we learn it because, this is our past, this is our whatever. And Mishnayos, forget about it. I mean, just what's the point with that? I remember my Mishnayos teacher, when he came to teach Mishnayos in high school, he put a yarmulke on his head. And we thought it was really weird. Like, okay, it's he has some kind of a complex that made him cover his head when he learned Mishnayos. Okay, Baruch Hashem, very good for him. But I remember, like today, when I looked for Yiddishkeit for very different reasons. I looked for Yiddish for emotional reasons. I ran away from the secular world because it's so corrosive and abrasive. Not that, within Yiddishkeit people are immune for that, but as a system. And besides that, that's the way my particular life went. Still, Kodesh Baruch Hu did a chesed with me, that my secular life, the way that I perceived them, were a very miserable experience. So I escaped to Yiddishkeit. I worked in an ad agency, and on the way home, I passed next to a very small and dusty Sforim store in the middle of secular Tel Aviv, with two Lubavitch Hasidim, two Chabad Hasidim that were sitting there. That was their store. An older, father-in-law and his son-in-law were just passed away at the age of 90-something. And so I didn't know the difference between Chabad and lampposts. I mean, it didn't mean anything to me. So one day I come into the store, and very innocently I asked them, is it possible for me to put on film? You know what it means for somebody to go into a Chabadnik store and says, can I please put on film? It's like waving a red cloth in front of a bull. Are you kidding? I mean, of course. So then I started, putting on film every day. I would pass and we'd talk, whatever it is. And one day they told me, would you like to learn something? I said, sure. The reason why I was willing to learn with them, is because they made me feel really good about myself. They made me feel very welcome. I liked myself in their company. So one of them opened up Tanya and he started teaching me. And it absolutely, totally, 100% blew my mind to smithereens. The reason for I was a deep shock. The reason why the shock was so deep is not only that I never knew that such wisdom, existed in Yiddishkeit. I had no idea that such wisdom existed in the world at all. I lived in a world where, technically people could learn physics, they could learn this, could learn that, whatever it is, but nobody was actually thinking. I was Suddenly the Father was alive. But the thing is, the reason why it's shown to me so much is because I came to it with their help from the Madriga of Emunah. There was a house. I was willing to believe. I was really, they made me feel good. I came to them, with the intention of finding, of finding some warmth, some acceptance. And suddenly I was exposed to this unbelievable sun. Suddenly a new sun started shining. It was just like came into being. I was totally shocked. Totally shocked. The light of the Chochmah in on itself needs a home. That home is Emunah. So when the fathers die in Kabbalah, in the spiritual sense, nothing ever dies. Kabbalah uses the word death euphemistically to say that something came down from its madriga, that it fell. So the primordial shattering of the vessel is called the death of the kings. So that means that the cognition, the realization, the awareness, the chokhmah, the expanded consciousness just disappear. So the question is, what do you have behind? What do you have if you're there? If you get into Emunah, if you're around Yiddishkeit, if Yiddishkeit is what you do, so no problem. You get into the house of Emunah, and you can live. It's not that easy. It's not that much fun. But you can build. And Emunah, the first thing that it does is it embraces you. It's a home. A home is where you live. We'll learn. Rabbeinu said that there's I think it's Yudzayin, I'm not sure. That there are three levels of Yiddishkeit that were exposed by, they were expressed and discovered and given out to the world by Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avram Avinu called the perception of Hashem Har. Behar Hashem Yirah. Balo Moshe Behar Hashem, it's a mountain. Yitzchak already advanced and called it a field. He says, and Yitzchak went out, to make his beredus in the field. when he met Rivka Imenu came from Lavan. And Yaakov Avinu already elevated into its finest manifestation, which is Bais, which is a home. And it says when he slept, with the dream, and he said, "This is Beis Elokim. This is the house of Hashem, and this is Shara Shamayim. That's the gate to heaven." The wise man, the sophisticate, that was not there. He kept on looking for different chokhmas, different kind of I don't know, wisdoms, sciences, these kind of things. So, because they're a lot of fun. The reason why people go after these chokhmas is because, first of all, you have the whole culture that says that they're important. But more than anything, those who are good at it, it's fun for them. They learn physics, and very, very sophisticated math, all kind of very, very sophisticated things. And it's a lot of fun to do it. They derive pleasure from it. But when they finally, as we'll see very soon, when they meet situations that are less than ideal, when the fun evaporates, when things are not the way they want it to be, that causes a great deal of suffering. Because emuna can sweeten the suffering and can relegate it to a level of objective pain. What can you do? Kabbalah Severis, Kodesh Baruch Hu, B'ezrat Hashem, we should never know any surim and any pain. B'ezrat Hashem, all of us. But suffering is not something that comes from, it's not the pain itself. Suffering comes from the fact that I'm suffering, from the fact that I'm feeling pain, and I don't see anything achieved by that, any goal, what does it give me? We talked about it quite a few times before, and we said that a person being pricked with a pin, can become paranoid. But a person that needs to have a blood test, just gives his arm over, to be pricked, without any qualms. What's the difference? They're both being stuck with a needle. The answer is that the one that gives, for the blood test knows the purpose of the pain. So there's the pain of being pricked, but there's no suffering involved from the fact that I'm feeling pain. But when a person does not know or believe in the purpose, that there's a purpose to what he's going through, that gives birth to suffering. This is where torment comes. This is what torments a person. So the Chacham, his house is lost. He has, in other words, he went chasing sciences to such a degree that Emunah was just not there, not existent anymore. So he had to go to inns. Inns represent, like smidgens of places that a person can sort of like rest his emunah, in the government, in the this, in the that, in the various different things. But these are very cold places. An inn is a very impersonal place. and it makes the person, there's no warmth there. There's no embrace. That's why when the Tom came to him, he came to him and invited him to his house. He told the Chacham, come to my house, come to my emuna. And the friendship and the acceptance that the Tom gave the sophisticate made it possible for the sophisticate to live by him. The same way that these Chabad Hasidim, what they gave me was acceptance and warmth and love. Pashat. So I wanted to be there. But the thing is, they didn't come looking for me. I went looking for them. And because of that, very quickly I was able to, to have my house built. I'll never forget, all these things I'll never forget, obviously. When I actually, crossed the Rubicon, the when I decided that I'm going to go into Yiddishkeit full time. I put on film, I was learning Hasidus, here and there. I was even davening a little bit here and there. But I did not make any decision yet to get in. I got in in this Chabad store, this Chabad Hasidim store. They had a series of 3 or 4 books of the stories of the Baal Shem Tov, stories about the Baal Shem Tov, that were written by Rabbi Yisrael Klapotz, Zichrono Livracha. And we're learning similar stories in every Motzei Shabbos, but there were many more of them, and hold on just one sec. All right. So I read these stories, and I read about things that were totally, in the realm of fantasy. They talk about tzaddikim, Baal Shem HaKadosh. They talked about using names in Kabbalah. They talked about miracles. And I looked at it, and there was a question, what do I do with it? Do I use my chachma and judge, is this real? Come on, it's ridiculous. What are you talking about? Or I could accept it as something which is true. So I decided to take them as facts. I said, something, let's accept them as something which is true. And I said to myself, I can always, return back to saying, this is just Boba Mises, if that's what I need to do. But what will happen if I accept that this is fact, this is true? And again, my mind was blown when I decided that I'm going to accept all the stories of the Baal Shem Tov as facts. I was transported. I became a different person. I knew, I knew that Yiddishkeit was where I wanted to be, and that's a home. That's the sophisticate going to live in the house of this simpleton. I decided to take my seichel, consciously take my seichel, put it aside, and rest on Emunah, take it on faith, as it were. And obviously I discovered a whole different universe. This is when the Chacham gets into the house of the Tam. The Tam tells him, listen, I'm going to take myself a corner, I'll take whatever it is I own to a one restricted area. You can have the entire house to do what you want. We see that the sophisticate, somebody who's using the seichel, cannot find comfort anywhere. The Tam, all he needs is just a little corner. That's it. That's all I need. And he's all the time full of joy. He's all the time full of simcha. He doesn't need anything from the outside to make him happy. The Emunah makes him happy. In the meantime, it's just, and not only this, now he finds, his sort of like, his goal is now to embrace the Chacham, to embrace the that lost sophisticate. And it gives him tremendous pleasure. Go ahead. Take my home. The way to integrate this Nakuda into our lives are that we need to understand that there is a safe haven in Emunah whenever it is that we run into not just situations, painful situations, but especially when we run into situations of self-doubt, of self-criticism, when I become my own worst enemy. And I have to do something, and I feel so pressured because it's so difficult for me. I'm so anxious. I'm afraid, or I don't know how many different scenarios of this might happen, this will happen, whatever it is. There's the what they call the imposter syndrome. They'll find that I'm not what it is that I pretend to be or purported to be or whatever. There's always a home in the Emunah. Because you see, the thing is that I can find myself stumbling, running away, feeling in such inner turmoil from pressure, from whatever it is, to such an extent that I can actually assuage my anxiety doing things that I really should not do. People fall to Averis because of that. because Averis are basically, I mean, the allure of Averis is it's an antidepressant. I mean, like every drug, it works right then and there. But it extracts a great toll. It's like a loan shark. It's just in this world. Forget about what happens in the next one. So, if a person ever finds himself in such a state that he's doing things that he knows he disagrees with, what do you do then? You feel like you're, led by like on a hook. It's like a fish on a hook. You're being led. You have a choice. I don't have a choice. Yes, not. The answer is don't give up on not agreeing. Even if you do something you definitely should not be doing, at least keep in your mind the knowledge that you shouldn't be doing it. Even if you can't do anything about it. Or you think, if you can't do anything about it, it's easier. But you're not sure if you can, or you can't, you want, you don't want. All these, to and fro. Don't forget, don't forget, you're doing something you should not be doing. So whenever it is you can, first of all, minimize your exposure. Rabbeinu said that a very, very important decider in what would be the atonement for an avera of any kind is the level of pleasure derived from it. If a person is doing an avera, and while he's doing the avera, he realizes, this is like, this is going to end in tears. I'm going to pay for this. That lessens the degree of pleasure that the avera is giving him. So his tshuva doesn't have to be that hard. It's a lot easier. You don't go to chokhmas. Chokhmas will not save you then. You go to Emunah. You talk to Kodesh Baruch Hu and you go, what am I supposed to do with this? I mean, I can't say anything because I myself am doing this. And I know I shouldn't be doing it, and I can't stop myself, or don't want to stop myself, and I don't know, what should I do? Do me a favor, help me with this. This is what you do when you are lost, when the father is lost, when the chokhmah is lost, to the point that you follow shtuyot. You don't know why you got there. As long as you don't give up, as long as you don't create a new standard, okay, from now on, that's my new standard, so, the crooked becomes straight. Don't do that. As long as you know that crooked is crooked, and you don't try to describe it and to crown it as the new normal, you always have a chance. Not just a chance. I mean, you will never get lost. And not only will you get out of there, you also take the chacham out of there. With you, there are, in that place where you find yourself lost, there are souls that fell. These are sparks of neshamas that fell to that place. And nothing can get them out. These are sparks that are from your shurish, not from your root. And when you fall to these places, you're together with them. Now comes the question, are you going to stay there and be lost like them? Or are you going to get out and take them out with you? Which is going to be? But I can't get myself out. Accept the fact that you don't know why you're there. What you're doing is wrong. And you turn to Hashem and you feel the exasperation, you feel the pain. You say, well, Shalom, what am I doing? And I can't stop. And he'll take you home. He'll take you home. As we will learn in Hashem later, in the next week, even in the house of the Tam, the Chacham was still miserable. But it's a different kind of misery. When you're going with Chochmas, you're asking for pain. You're asking for suffering. When you're going philosophically, when you're looking for opinions, But when you live in Emunah, and when you realize that you are lost, and you don't go to Chochmas, you go to Emunah, yes, Kadosh Baruch Hu, please help me out. My goose is cooked. I don't know what to do. I can't do anything. I'm begging you, I'm imploring you, do me a favor. And many times when you're such, you can't even say anything. So you say 5-10 seconds, a sentence or two, and then another sentence or two, maybe days apart, maybe weeks apart. But you're still on that. This is called oisek b'tshuva. Means no matter it is that you haven't given up, you haven't declared a new normal. You don't live in denial. As long as you don't live in denial, you live in the Emunah, even if it's one spark of light in the sea of darkness, days and weeks apart. You are oisek b'tshuva. Kadosh Baruch Hu, will not forget you. With the koach of the tzaddik, you will get to where you need to get. B'ezrat Hashem. Hashem will help us. They will all understand that we live in the house of Emunah. We put Chochmah in it. We fill the house of Emunah with Chochmah. But only Chochmas Emes, as we will learn with the Chochmah in the house of the Tam, is still suffering because his Chochmas are not Chochmas Emes. We'll talk about him, Yitzhak Hashem, next week. B'ezrat Hashem should have a good voch, and as we call it, Emunah Shleima for all of us. B'ezrat Hashem, Wednesday we will learn Likutei Moharan. I believe that we have finished Torah Chav Beis, and we will go to Torah Chav Gimel, Mitzvah Shem Bli Nedan. We'll see you, Mitzvah Shem, on Wednesday.